Hello and welcome to Tokyo Inklings. My name is CY and you can find me on my website at tokyostationpens.com, on Instagram at tokyostationpens, and on Twitter at tokyostationmnh.
And my name is Jacob and I'm a foodafan on Instagram and on Twitter and have a blog at foodafan.com.
And this is episode 36. And Jacob, we are only here because of our listeners, and our listeners are really kind and they've been writing reviews for us. So I'd like to just head into our reviews if you don't mind.
Sure, let's do it. All
right. The first review says, Window into the Wonderful World of Japanese Stationery by Alpenglow76 via Apple Podcasts from Great Britain. Alpenglow writes, an extremely absorbing listen from two passionate Tokyoites, Jacob and CY, about Japanese fountain pens, inks, and paper. If you listen to this podcast, be prepared to lose yourself in an absorbing universe of Japanese stationery. I particularly enjoy the episodes where the various pen and ink shows in Japan are reviewed and the industry reports on Japanese companies such as Sailor. It's great that you guys also make things up by inviting guests on some of the episodes like Alasan Kwe to add their own unique perspectives. Thanks so much to Jacob and CY for producing such an entertaining podcast, especially in such a challenging time for us all. P.S. I appreciate that you guys have kept the podcast free from ads and other commercial content, as I'm aware producing podcasts costs time and money. Thank you very much, Alpen. We really appreciate that.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah.
And, we always... At least for me, I just feel that it's weird to, when you run ads on a podcast, you're basically saying, hey, please give me money for somebody else's product. I always thought that was a bit weird. I guess we are evaluating how best to approach monetizing the podcast. We do want to make it worth our time as well. And we're looking into that. But in the future, we'll probably set up some kind of a community where we'll have like some extra incentives and stuff like that. But for now, the way that you can pay this podcast is by writing reviews and giving us a rating on Apple Podcasts. So thank you so much.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, this second review, I'm almost tempted to have you read it, but I'll go ahead and read it. But I might pronounce something wrong. Okay, so you gotta help me out. So this review is from Rio Bernard via Apple Podcasts from Sweden.
Okay.
And he says, invaluable insights. 5 stars. He says, I'm running a Swedish online stationery store selling only Japanese items. This podcast is invaluable to me, providing great insights directly from Japan in a format that even a beginner can listen to. Thank you for making my work both more easy and more fun. Robin, Komadori.
Okay.
I don't know what this is, Komadori. What does that mean?
Komadori? No, I'm not sure.
They wrote it in alphabet, but I'm just wondering. Maybe that's their store name.
Oh, yeah, could be. Yeah, it looks more Japanese than Swedish to me.
Okay. Just making sure I was not not butchering anything there. All right. And I'm back from Hokkaido. Jacob, had a very fun adventure in Hokkaido. And so I hope you don't mind if I just jump into some of the things that I found there.
Yeah, I followed your stories, and clearly you had a lot of fun while the rest of us worked as usual.
Yeah, so in Hokkaido, there's actually not much to do in terms of like pen and stationery. There is, of course, JR Central Fujimaru, and they have a bunch of limited Sailor pens in the slim version. But this time I went to Hakodate, which I would argue is probably the second most well-known city in Hokkaido outside of Sapporo.
It might have something to do with a Shinkansen station.
Yes. Which, by the way, is actually not in Hakodate. But I went there. I was like, I wonder if there are any stationery stores here. So I searched, and lo and behold, one of the biggest places where you can get local inks called Ishita Bungu and they're actually pretty famous. Just across Japan for having their own line of one of the first really to have their own line of sailor inks. But Istabungu is in a city just north of Hakodate called Hokuto. Now, I have to make a small detour from the pen-related information, but basically, if you followed my stories, you'll see that I posted a bunch of stories about this weird-looking, creepy, like monster sitting on the Shinkansen. So, apparently, this monster is called Zushi-hokki, which is the official mascot of Hokuto City. Now, to describe this monster, it's supposed to be a shellfish sushi that's really like white in color, except for the tail where it gets a little bit red. But the way that they drew the sushi is this really derpy-faced sushi.
Yeah.
And it's doing like all these crazy poses, like riding on top of the Shinkansen like a Godzilla.
That one in particular looked a bit suspicious.
Yeah, like just all sorts of crazy. I have like pictures where it's on like it's all fours, running at you like a creepy monster. So Hokuto was deciding on their mascot a few years ago, and I guess somebody entered this as a joke, and lo and behold, it won. So it is the official mascot of Hokuto, this little town above Hakodate. And of course, there was an ink to celebrate Hokki, and it's called Hokki Rouge. And of course, I bought this ink. It was too good. It was too funny, and the inks are using their older diamond vase bottles, and it just has this sushi printed on it. It's hilarious, Jacob.
But this is also a bit of a detour, but these mascots are just ubiquitous in Japan. Like every little town has its own mascots, and some are more popular than others. Of course, in Kumamoto, the Kumamon is breakout hit. Yeah,
Kumamon is popular everywhere, whereas I had not heard of Hokki before I went to Hokkaido, but I will definitely remember Hokki. Yeah. But you bought some, you said that you were a pilot fanboy, so you bought another pilot.
Well, so in the last episode, I talked about how I went to that pilot event at Itoya, right? And one of the things they did at this event was that they had all kinds of pilot pens inked up that you could test, and not just like the cheap Preras and whatnot. They also had like custom Urushi, they had some Namikis and so on. So I tested all kinds of pens, including pilots like silver. I'm not sure what's called outside Japan. I think sterling silver collection or something like that. But in Japan it's called silver, so it is the silver pen, right? And I'd never really used that pen before, but I suddenly I realized that this is a Jacob pen, right? The section is just really perfect for me. It's a very comfortable to hold, because of the material. It has a nice heft, nice to write with. It has a most satisfying snap cap, unlike that terrible coned cap we talked about last time. And it looks great, right? The silver with this one has the tsumugi patterns. I realized I really like this model, but those pens are quite expensive, especially if you buy them like at full MSRP, which you would do at Itoya, right? I think they're over 50,000 yen. So I've been looking for these models on second-hand markets, and like this week I found one listed on Kingdom Note. So we talked before about how like every day around noon, Kingdom Note updates its list of new second-hand pens that they're selling, like the new arrivals. And there are so many people looking at that around the same time. You can see how the page load time is just getting slower and slower and slower, because you know that everyone is looking at it. So once the page refreshes and you see the new pens, you
Just go
have
for
to
it.
make a split-second decision, right? You scan the page, preferably on a desktop PC, because then you can see everything at once, right? So you quickly see everything. And in this case, I saw a Pilot Silvern. I clicked on it. I didn't bother reading the description. I didn't bother looking at the photos. I just clicked add to cart. I clicked go to payment. I didn't bother using my points. I didn't bother using anything else. I just clicked through the whole checkout procedure as fast as I possibly could. And this time I managed to buy it. Because we have talked before about how even though you add something to the cart, even though you are halfway through the checkout procedure, after you decide on payment method or after you decide on whether to use some coupon, whatever, at that time someone else may buy the pen. It's not reserved until you are, well, actually it's not reserved until it's
Jacob,
shipped.
Yeah, no, I've bought pens and then after I received the confirmation it got cancelled because somebody else was faster than
me. So you don't know for sure whether you get it until you get a shipping notification, basically, right? So once you see something you want, you have to just be as fast as you can and just like click through everything and buy it, which is what I did this time. So I got one for what I think is a good price. I think 28,000 yen. I mean, it's not like shockingly good price, but given that
that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a pretty good price, and you know that there's a certain like mean quality you can expect from Kingdom Note, and they clean the pens. They even give you like a 30-day return. You get a lot for your money when you buy second-hand pens from Kingdom Note. So so I managed to get the pen, and I got the shipping notification, and I got the pen, and it's been inked up, and I even sold some other pens because I think this is for this week at least. This is my favorite right now.
I mean, it's pretty hefty too, right?
Yes.
So I put in the show notes secret. Don't click until episode. Now I want you to open that link.
What is this? Okay.
I wrote surprise.
Don't click until episode.
All right. So I bought this Silvern. Can you see it?
I didn't know this existed.
That's right. I bought a Pokemon edition Silvern. Unfortunately, I paid MSRP because these are new pens. But this is a Silvern with a Pokeball on top on the cap, and there's a adorable little Pikachu on the barrel, and I just think this is hilarious, Jacob. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, it is so interesting that they decided to do this pen. I mean, it's not surprising that they do a pen with a Pikachu theme. I mean, of course.
It's surprising they did it on this pen.
Exactly, right? Because this is
it's like a serious person pen, right?
This is a serious person pen with a Pikachu on it.
Yeah, so they have a Rayquaza and a Charizard version as well. And this is a US exclusive, Jacob. You cannot buy this in Japan.
I love this.
As far as I understand, it's only 100 of each hand-etched Pokeball and hand-etched Pikachu on the barrel.
I don't know who decided to make this pen, but I applaud them. This is... Yes. More of this Pilot, please. We love this.
And interestingly, on the product page, it says part of the Pilot X Pokemon collection.
Okay.
So I don't know if that means there's going to be more stuff here. It says durable, flexible rhodium nib. Obviously, they mean 18K
right.
gold. But, part of the Pilot X Pokemon collection. So this seems to imply that more might come. I hope so. I certainly hope so. This is fantastic.
This is great. Yeah, I love this. Thank you, Pilot, for doing this.
Yeah, I'll bring it over once I get it here in Japan.
Sure. But I mean, given that you are very anti-cartridge converter, I assume this won't be staying in your collection.
This will go to Akane, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I've talked about my love for the Pen BBS 355 on the show before.
Yeah.
I actually think Pen BBS does really interesting stuff. Their materials are really interesting, but I just really hate their logo. I really hate their name. But I've been eyeing the 355 in Winter's Night. And Bainey finally decided to sell this Winter's Night. So I bought a 355 in Winter's Night. I bought a 355 in clear glass. And then I bought their magnet filler. I think it's the 487 in Winter's Night. And I combined these pens together to make one single kind of Franken-pen, I suppose, with the magnet cap and the 355 body. There's actually a bit of like modification involved. You have to cut off parts of threads and stuff like that. So it's definitely not something that I would recommend to the listeners unless they're willing to take the risk. But this is really, this was like, together I think I paid like $90 for this. I think this is just as good as a Conid regular. And I mean, for me, maybe even better because I just like this shape so much. But
you did something similar before, right? I remember this orange one.
Yeah, I did something similar before, but I wasn't able to systematically cut the threads as well. This time, I think I really got it perfect. And the thing is, once you cut threads, there's no going back, right? Like you can't regenerate the threads. I do have to say though that the 487, this magnet filler, I've heard a lot of complaints online about how it doesn't work, so I decided to try it, and I just can't get the magnet to move. And you had the test version of this, right? You had the Year of the Rat version of this. Was that? What, did you have the same experience?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't work well for me at all. I mean, I like the fact that they tried it. That's one of the things I like about Pen BBS, that they try to make all kinds of filling systems. At least the first iteration of the magnet filler that I tried, it wasn't very, very good.
So mine is not a problem of it didn't work well. Mine is a problem of it doesn't work. Like it won't move. It won't move.
Yeah.
But anyways, I've combined these pens. I'm very satisfied with this pen. But you got also a package from Bainey, right?
Yeah, so I can't remember if we talked about the calligraphy nibs before. I remember that you got, when they were first sold on Etsy.
That's right.
I didn't get it that time because they was listed in evening Japan time, past my bedtime. So by the time I woke up, they were all gone. But this time I managed to snag 2 of them, and they arrived very fast. I think it was in 1 week or so. I'm not sure what's going on, but shipping from China is for some reason very fast right now. Yeah, so these are, they're basically naginata togis. I mean, I would describe them as close to sailors like NB's and naginata broads, and what we have called these fat nags before. Although our friend Leo, he calls them flat as an ironing board. He doesn't agree that they're really naginatas, but I think that they're like a naginata broad, and I really like how they write. But more important, I'm so impressed that they managed to make a naginata style nib for $20.
Yeah, I think so I had one of these nibs. It's very well made.
Yeah.
In terms of whether it is a naginata or not, I remember a few years ago when our friend Catherine came to Tokyo, and she showed us her naginata that was ground by Nagahara on a Parker 51. I commented, wow, this is a very interesting nib, but I don't think I would qualify that as a nag, because I think naginatas are defined by their roundedness on the nib, whereas the one that she showed us, which Nagahara had done, was very flat. I'm a bit undecided as to how I see this, but the flatter the surface, the better it is for writing kanji. That I've noticed.
But so, if you look at the Naginata MF, it's a bit more architect-like. It's like a speedboat, right?
Right.
While the Naginata Broads, or at least, if you remember, not long ago, I asked Nagahara to turn a coarse nib into. I specifically asked for like a Naginata or a Kaihasta Naginata B, and that one is also quite flat, right?
So I'm wondering if it is a matter of an evolution in his grinding style. I'm curious to know if older NBs were also as flat, because that one it's almost like a zoom but sharper, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did a post about this yesterday, and I got some interesting comment. One thing was that apparently pen BBS are not the only ones doing this. So there are two other Chinese pen makers, Hongdian and also Kaigalu. They have both recently released like naginata style nibs.
Yeah.
So I need to get my hands on those and try them. So I think that's a very interesting development, that you have these Chinese pen makers making affordable, and at least in the case of pen BBS, pretty good naginata style grinds. And then I also asked Bainey directly, how are these made? I mean, are they completely made by hand, or has Long found a way to somehow automate this production? And she said that they are made by machine, but the final polish is by hand.
I think that being made by machine shouldn't be difficult for this nib, because it's much more angular. You can see the angles, right? Yeah. Final polishing by hand, that surprises I think nobody. I think most nibs are actually polished by hand at the end, unless you're platinum. Oh, oops, was that shade? Anyways, but yeah, that does not surprise me, and I think because sailors are more rounded, and you can't really machine grind like a rounder shape,
right?
I think, because there's much more like margin for error. So I think that's much better, like if you do it by hand. So that's probably why Sailor is still doing it by hand, because I feel like theirs are a bit rounder.
Right. One more thing I would say about these calligraphy nibs is that a common complaint about Chinese pens, at least from like Western fountain pen users, is that they have for the longest been available mostly in fine or extra fine nibs, unless you count Fuda nibs, which hold different things, right? So people have been asking for like Chinese pens with more tipping, and this is exactly what this is.
This is the game changer.
Right. Even if you're not specifically looking for a naginata, what you have here is a pen BBS nib with quite a generous amount of tipping.
Yeah, totally agree. So today, actually yesterday, I was very anxiously waiting for a package from our good friend in San Jose, and so it arrived. And this pen is the reason why I've been selling a lot of my pens, including my Konids, actually. And so it was supposed to arrive yesterday, and it did not arrive in time. So I asked them to deliver it today. Again, they missed the delivery time, which was supposed to be in the morning. And finally I called them, like, you know what, leave it in my box. I have this, I have it kind of like a collection box or a bag that they can use where there's a lock. So to leave it in that. And I open it, and it is my first Arco pen. Hopefully my last.
Hopefully my last. Why hopefully?
My last? Because I can't afford these anymore, Jacob. They're too expensive. And this one is a imitation. This is a custom pen which was built as an imitation to the 139, but it's faceted with with one of the old Mont Blanc ink windows. This is a very interesting pen. It's very large, very faceted, very bling bling. But it smells so very good, like that nice celluloid smell.
So sorry, what brand is this?
This is a custom Francis Gossens pen.
Okay.
So, it's a lot bigger than I expected it to be. A lot bigger than I expected it to be. But it takes a 149 nib, so now I need to find a good nib to go in here.
That shouldn't be too hard. The 149s you can find them for a pretty good price on second-hand markets here.
That is true. That is true. But this is the. You can't just put any nib on here, right?
Right.
You can't just put an M in this pen. I don't think that would do it justice. You need to put like a really good nib in here. So I'm kind of yeah.
So how about a stacked 149 nib?
A stacked 149 could be good if I can afford it, but I cannot. Thanks to buying this pen.
Well, you just need to sell some more Coneds and you'll be fine.
That is true, but I don't have any more Coneds to sell. So, but this is very exciting. I've been waiting for this for a long time. It is just a piston filler. It is not a telescopic piston, which I'm actually okay with. I think that's perfectly fine. I've not inked this up yet. This pen it's huge, Jacob. It's huge. I think you would like this pen. Except you don't
bring
like
it next time.
Yeah, I will for sure. My only downside, I suppose, I don't know how to disassemble this pen, so that is the only strange part. But
I'm sure you'll figure it out.
I don't know if I want to, Jacob, because this was an expensive pen, so I don't think I want to risk messing it up. But I can see why his pens cost so much money. I mean, this was in the multiple 4 digits. And yeah, easily the most expensive pen that I've ever bought in my life. And I can see the appeal of Arco. It's got this like holographic reflectiveness to it, which is very interesting. So I'll bring it next time, so they can check it out as well.
Sounds good.
Yeah, but you don't like Arco.
I don't think I've ever seen one in person. I've seen the photos. Yeah, it looks nice, but it's not really, something I would spend money on.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think this is definitely a one and done kind of pen for me. It's like, okay, I've had it. I don't know if I'll keep it in the future, but this is certainly a very stunning pen. It smells nice.
Sounds good.
Yeah. All right. So shall we move on to some news?
Sure.
So we are now in the 4th state of emergency, which means absolutely nothing. I went to buy a new vacuum cleaner today in Akihabara, and I swear it was packed. Absolutely packed. Feels like these state of emergencies are totally toothless. And we have the first positive COVID case inside the Olympic Village today.
Oh, really? I didn't see that, but that doesn't surprise me. I know there was one case, was some athlete from some country that tested positive on arrival, right?
Yeah, the Ugandan team tested positive on arrival. I mean, I think some of these people, not necessarily athletes, but some of these people are so stupid. Like, I think four or five people were caught like last week doing cocaine in Roppongi. What? Why would you do that? That's like a death penalty. Like that is a death penalty case in Japan. And I'm sure they're not going to be executed, but still, like, why would you do... I mean, just the risk of being arrested abroad where you don't know your rights, you don't know the language, you have no family, that just sounds so crazy to me.
I think it's funny and yet not the slightly surprising that they ended up doing it in Roppongi of all places.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, I mean, it's just absolutely insane.
Yeah.
I mean, the situation is getting out of hand, and I guess we're not going to do anything about it until after the Olympics.
The 3rd state of emergency just ended recently, right? So it's...
Right.
Yeah, they come and go, and at the same time, vaccinations are not happening as fast as people would have wanted to, because now there are problems with shortages. So where I live, for example, the original plan was for people aged 59 or younger to be able to make a reservation from August, but now the city is saying that we don't have enough doses we haven't received enough doses from the government, so it's a TBD for now.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's totally crazy. But I think we both agree that Tokyo Pen Show will probably not be affected by this.
Right.
Even if there were to be a fifth state of emergency, they would probably not cancel, right?
I agree. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, pretty toothless. I'm not sure. Like, yeah, I've got no words for them.
But at least by November, I think there's reason to expect that a reasonably big chunk of the population will have gotten their, at very least, their first dose.
Yeah, the problem is that, like, I want to go to Hong Kong, right? Like, I want to go back to Hong Kong so I can take care of some of my errands that I need to do. And with this, they're probably going to classify Japan as a dangerous place where you have to quarantine if you're coming in from Japan, and that, I mean, that's an issue for me, right? Like,
I mean, it's not without reason. I have this year have to take 2 PCR tests already because of people getting infected at work in the office. So I mean, yeah,
that's crazy. All right, so we also have some news from Wagner. I mean, Mori-san sent the most strange cryptic email the other day. You want to explain about that?
Yeah, so he has his pen clinic, which is not quite Wagner, but it's closely associated with Wagner. And he's been running his pen clinic for 3 years now. So he now has announced a 3rd year anniversary pen. A pen clinic 3rd year anniversary pen. So the first anniversary pen was that light blue platinum President, if you remember.
Yes.
And the second anniversary pen was that green 3776 with that Star Trek Naginata, if you remember, last year. And this year it's not a platinum, but it's a Fine Writing International. It's a Fenestro with a wooden version of it. For some reason,
sorry, right there you said it's a Fine Writing International. Do we want to also note that Mori-san says there will be no more 3776s in the future?
I actually missed that part. Tell me about it.
I think Mori-san said that this year's 2021's Wagner pen, which is the Grage, I think I read in the email that this will probably be the last 3776, and I think he said that they won't make any more 3776s.
Very interesting. I have to go back and read that, but I do remember reading on his blog that it's increasingly difficult for him to custom order 3776 pens.
Right.
But just a few years ago, he was able to do this order 200 with 5 or 6 different nib options, everything from soft fine to music to coarse, right? And then for the last 2 years, I think he's only been able to get M nibs,
yeah.
And very recently he complained that it's ordering small lots is increasingly difficult. So yeah, maybe the writing was on the wall that this is something that won't happen in the future.
Yeah, and so speaking about this Fine Writing International pen, this looks a lot like the Fine Writing International 10th anniversary pen, right? It's a size 5 nib.
Yeah, it's got a size 5 nib. I'm not sure why he chose that, but he wrote that he thinks those are softer and he likes working on those. He says that he can do grinds on these number 5 size nibs that he previously could only do with Platinum SF nibs.
And he claims to have invented a nib grind.
Yeah, he says... he basically says he made the world's first soft cursive italic.
Which is not true.
So yeah, but it's only one prototype grind so far, and he says he's hoping that he will be able to offer this.
Yeah, how strange. I mean, what a strange thing to say.
Yeah. I'm not sure what to say about that. But I also wonder, like, we know of at least 3 pens now that he has sold or he has commissioned with number 5 size nib. So in addition to this pen, it was that single color ebonite pen that I don't think we even covered that on a podcast, but he sold that a few months ago, and that had a number 5 size nib. And then this upcoming platinum glamour style like chubby pen that he's been talking about is also going to have a number 5 size nib. I wonder if that has to do with like gold prices, or if it's just that he prefers this nib now.
But I mean, he's selling them with steel nibs, though. I mean, he sells stuff with steel nibs a lot of times too. So I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah. And you wrote Sailor ×10 in the show notes. What is this?
Yes, so 1 week ago, Sailor released something called Sailor Prophet Junior plus 10 Minamo. So this is a set containing a Sailor Prophet Junior and a converter and a small ink bottle. And there are a few things that are interesting about this release. So first of all, there's 3 different versions. There's one with a red ink, there's one with a blue ink, and there's one with a green ink. And the ink bottles are 10 ml. I'm not sure if I've seen that from Sailor before, but we have talked a number of times about how popular these glass bottles from Tamiya are. So when people trade inks in Japan, they often use these 10 ml Tamiya Kakubin bottles, right? And even retailers like Kobayashi and Usaga, they sell ink samples in these 10 ml bottles. So I wonder, and I suspect that sailors choosing to sell inks in 10 ml bottles has something to do with the popularity of the Tamiya bottles. Have you seen 10 ml bottles from Sailor before?
What's the size of the inks? The ink studio?
I think they're like 20, something like that. I could be wrong. Yeah, but these are definitely smaller.
Maybe. So they're not the same size? That's okay. Yeah. Okay. So they're 20 milliliters. Yeah.
Yeah. The other interesting thing is that this is going to be the first of a number of Prophet Junior like ink set releases. So this is just the first one. It says it's a limited edition, and it's going to be more of these in the future. And the theme of the first edition is right there in the name, Minamo. So things around the water surface is sort of the theme. And that's why they choose these 3 inks. So there's a red ink called Shirokuma, so polar bear. I'm not quite sure why they choose red for polar bear. Maybe you have a theory about that.
No, I think in Japan polar bears are red.
Maybe they are. And then there's a green ink, which is called there's a blue ink called Hakucho, so swan. Yeah, okay. I mean, the water is blue, I guess. I don't know why they chose that color. And then there's a green ink called crawls, as in swimming, which seems so random. So you have 2 animals and then crawling. and why is crawling green? I don't get that either.
And they're also just rebottled inks, right? They're not new inks.
That's the third thing that is interesting. Yes, so these are actual Sailor Ink Studio inks. I think it's 230, 840, and 464 that they have just rebottled and come up with nice new labels for. And I'm not sure why they chose these 3, because there's so many interesting inks in Sailor's Ink Studio line, right? But these 3, 230, 840, and 464, they are like basic green, basic blue, and basic red. Right? You would think that they would pick something a bit more exciting, but I don't know. But this seems popular actually. So we both went to Marsden yesterday, and I managed to buy the inks separately. So the ink set is available separately, but the Prophet Junior set with a pen and converter and ink was all sold out.
Right.
So even though that doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to us, maybe it resonated with the intended customer, which seems to be like first-time buyers, right? Because you buy a set that has everything you need to get started. So maybe this is gonna be a success for Sailor.
Yeah, and it's cute. It's easy to buy. As you said, everything is just all there. I think it's an easy entry point.
Yeah.
So that's probably really good.
By the way, while we're on the topic of Sailor, there's one other Sailor release that we didn't cover before, but I think is interesting enough to talk about. So in April, Sailor released something called Profit Casual. And Profit Casual looks like a normal Profit 21 or Profit Standard. I think it's available in black and burgundy. It looks very traditional. But unlike Profit 21, Profit Casual is a steel nib. And you might ask, why bother releasing this when you have Pro Color and when you have other steel nibs? But what's interesting, as I discovered today, the Profit Casual has all the nib options that you have with the gold nibs, including zoom and music. I don't think I've ever seen a steel zoom nib before. I'm not sure if they ever existed, but here you can buy a Profit Casual with a steel zoom nib.
So how much does it cost?
The regular, all the nibs other than zoom and music are 5,500 yen. So basically the same price as Platinum's Procyon. But the zoom and music are 7,700 yen. So just like with the gold nibs, you're paying extra for zoom and music.
So my question is it worth paying 5,000 yen more to upgrade to the Profit Lite, which is the same model with the same clips, but it has a gold nib?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And Profit Lite is, as we covered in our Ancora episode, is another new model which basically replaces the recently discontinued Promenade.
Yeah.
Right. I know. I feel like for a moment there was some clarity and simplicity to say this lineup. Now it's all confusing again.
They're so close to each other in price point. I'm just wondering, why have a Profit Lite, a Profit Standard, which is 3,000 yen in difference, and then you also come up with casual. I think it's weird.
It is. But it is interesting that they sell steel nibs with zoom tipping.
Maybe we can cut here to talking about how Sailor does their business model in terms of exclusives, and then we'll end on the last Drilog topic.
Sure.
So, I've been hearing, from here and there, other podcasts, a lot of people seem to be getting Sailor fatigue because Sailor seems to always be releasing pen after pen after pen, and it's just really hard to keep up. And I keep hearing the sentiment around me. People are saying, I wish Sailor released this into their general lineup and made it more widely available. So specifically, for example, the Black Cat, right, which was limited to 100 pieces, sold out literally instantly.
Right.
Why don't they just introduce that into the standard lineup? Sell 2,000 more of them, but reduce the price from 600 to 500 or something. So from a consumer's point of view, I do understand that it looks like Sailor's trying to really capitalize, they understand what they're doing and capitalizing on this FOMO aspect. What do you think about this phenomenon? Do you think that's what Sailor is doing? Do you think they're intentionally riding this?
Well, so first of all, I think prices have gone up even for the standard models quite a bit, and I think a big part of that has to do with the gold prices, right? So if you look at the gold prices in Japanese yen, it's been like around like the 4,000 to 5,000 yen range for almost 10 years, and then suddenly like this year or like last year they jumped to 7,000. So that is of course a big difference to them. So they have to bump the prices across the board. Now for the limited editions, I think that's the name of the game now, and I think part of it is that the retailers are asking for it, because I think that is how a retailer survives in the age of Amazon, right? There's no real reason to buy something from Hachimonja instead of buying from Amazon if Amazon has the same product for 30% less.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of people don't understand that, like, it's actually not Sailor that's releasing these pens. It's retailers asking Sailor to develop something special for their company so that they can survive.
Yeah.
And I think this is really interesting when you look at, like, you know, we always say, oh, wow, brick and mortar stores are so strong in Japan. You can still go into shops and like see like a bunch of pens, whereas in the US, everything is kind of like conglomerated into like your Target or like Walmart, right? And I think on one hand, like, there is a sense of, okay, there's like FOMO, but on the other hand, you know, these store exclusives in limited runs is kind of how these stores survive, and I'm actually pretty okay with them doing that, right? Like, it's a interesting business model. And the thing is, if you're talking about like smaller stores and retailers ordering these pens, then you can't order like 5,000 of these pens at once, right? Because you have to be more conservative in how much you order, because otherwise your inventory is going to just explode and you won't be able to keep a healthy cash flow. So I think for these like stores, their top of mind isn't, oh, how can I meet all of the demands of like, you know, hundreds of thousands of customers, you know, in the US. Their main demand is, how am I going to get rid of my inventory once I have it in?
Right.
And it's just much safer for these companies to do them in limited runs. I think what Hachimonja and Pentanota do, which is, you know, restock every now and then, that's pretty good. But, you know, these pens are going to be limited because the people who are running these stores and ordering these products, you know, they don't have thousands and thousands of dollars to spend on that. You know, they're probably like, you know, mom and pop's shops.
Exactly.
Whereas if you look at Nagasawa, right, when they do limited editions, they do them in much bigger quantity, right? Like out of 500 or something. And they're able to do that because they've been around for 150 years, 139 years. And they've got a huge presence. They've got a huge brand. They've got like 5 stores around Japan. So they're still family owned, but at the same time, they're able to make those bigger risks because they have such a diversified portfolio. If you go to Nagasawa in Kobe, I don't know if you've ever been before, but the fountain pen corner is actually pretty small.
Right.
They have a lot of customers. Buying like books and like other stationery and like bags and things like that. And of course, we know them for their fountain pen corner, but you know, they're just a much bigger enterprise. They're like a medium-sized business.
And this ties in nicely to another kind of common complaint, is that why don't all of these retailers sell their pens online? Well, the reason is that they want people to come into the store. Like even retailers that do sell some pens online, like Usagiya and Hachimonja, they reserve a portion of the inventory for in-store sales only because they want to have foot traffic to the stores, right?
Yep. So, like, and I understand this as well, because if you bring people into the store, then they might buy something else.
Yeah.
And this gets to like the next topic that I wrote, which is I think when you're buying these pens, you have to think, why am I buying like this? Because if you're buying them just to collect all the colors of the rainbow, maybe that's something that we need to look at in terms of our habits. If we're buying them because we like and we enjoy this particular aesthetic, I think that's great, right? I think like understanding why you're actually putting that money in, and it might be for using or it might be for collecting, I think those are both valid. But what's important is to understand and make sure that you're buying because it's making you happy, not just because you need to fulfill it as a number in your collection, right?
I'm not really a collector of anything myself, so I don't really have that mindset, but I understand that usually when you're collecting, there's a certain like theme or pattern that you're following. So if you are a pilot collector, then usually you might be interested in all the anniversary pens or some particular vintage pen with all the nib options, or even if you are a Sailor Pro Gear collector, maybe you're interested in like all of Kingdom Notes like Sea Slug pens or whatever. Usually there's a theme to it, right?
Yeah.
But you can't, and most people at least can't collect all possible Pro Gears because there are just too many of them. You have to decide what you are looking for,
and you have to have that self-control, right?
Yeah.
It's not Sailor's fault, or it's not like these retailers' fault that they're releasing all these pens in very limited quantities, and therefore you're feeling FOMO, because that's what they need to do. And they're not trying to make you feel FOMO, right? They're releasing their special pens because they need that to survive and have customers come into the shop.
Yeah.
And if you like that pen, you should buy it. But if you're buying it just because you're, collecting all the Pro Gears, that's a habit that we've got to fix as consumers, I think.
Yeah, it's a game you can't win.
Yeah, but you're never going to win this. I mean, they're going to release new pens. There are things that you can't buy. Yes. And I think that's okay. I think that's totally okay.
Yeah.
Talking about things that you can't buy, though, until very, very recently, you could not buy this pen outside of Japan. And that pen is, of course, Drillog.
Yeah, so they finally opened their Kickstarter, and as far as I could tell, they met their funding goal on the first day, I believe. Now they're way, way above their funding goal. What I found interesting was that the bar was pretty low. So the goal was 1.8 million yen, and I think this ties into the discussion we had a few episodes back, where you asked me, why do they even do this Kickstarter in the first place, right? If they need to raise capital, 1.8 million yen, I'm not sure how much that does for them.
Can't even pay somebody's salary.
Yeah, exactly, right? So I think this again shows that this might be mostly marketing more than anything else. But what I'm wondering is if they're going to have a problem now because they're going to get more orders, more supporters than they had anticipated. And I think that could be a problem for at least two reasons. One is that as they are mentioning themselves on the campaign page, there's only so many of these nibs they can make at any point in time. So there's gonna be delays. And the other thing is they're not really good at communicating in English. And the more backers you have, the more comments you're gonna have, the more questions you're gonna have. I don't think they have people that can really do the social media side of things and take care of it. I fear that there's going to be some complaints that they're not communicating as much as they should, mainly because I don't think they have the capacity to do that.
Yeah, they kind of dug themselves into a hole, right?
Yeah.
Like Okay, so from a business perspective, what the board looks at, what the executives look at, what the investors look at, more than your bottom line is your year-on-year growth. because it shows sustainability, it shows future potential, and of course your bottom line is important, but year-on-year growth is really, really important. And it's also important because if you have a massive growth this year, but you know that you can't keep it next year, how many people do you hire, right? Sure. So my concern is that there's a huge wave of interest of drill logs right now.
Yeah.
Are they going to be able to keep this up next year? Like, is this going to be a fad? And I think they, in my opinion, they should have done their international rollout more slowly, like Nakaya, where they really limited the supply, but they ensure that they can stay in business for, the next 5, 10, 20 years. Now they're inundated with, I don't know how many backers, and they've got to make all of these pens, and I'm just worried that everybody who wants these pens will have gone in the first wave, and then what do you do 5 months down the line? So I'm a bit concerned about that. I agree also that it seems like mostly marketing. They could have really just easily sold it direct, take PayPal or whatever. And plus now they have to pay this fee to Kickstarter. But I will say that they did a good job on the marketing, because you have Fig Boot, who's reviewing it. You have obviously you reviewed it. You have Pen Addict who's reviewed it, Brad. So I'd say they've done a good job at the marketing.
Yeah.
Now they really need to think about how to allocate their resources.
Yeah, I fully agree. I wish them all the best. I'm just worried. I'm hoping that they can keep this up. I'm hoping that they develop new models, and that they get some retailer agreements or the distributor agreement, and that this will be the start of something. By the way, when they first contacted me on Twitter, they sent me a DM in English, which wasn't very good. Clear auto-translated or something like that. And then I replied in Japanese, and I was opening the floodgates. And since then, they keep sending me messages all the time. So, I think they're struggling with English communication, and I worry that this is going to lead to people in the comments section here complaining that they don't get the answers that they want from Drillog.
Yeah, this is the difficulty with international expansion, right? Not just for Drillog, but for all companies, is that unless you have a representative, so therefore you go through a distributor and have distribution channels, and they will do all of the marketing for you, or you have salespeople who can communicate with the market. It's just really, really hard. Again, time will tell if they have dug themselves into a hole.
Time will tell, yes. We're hoping for the best. We wish them all the best.
Yeah, and I think it's quite exciting. I mean, not often do you get so much excitement around a single product, right? Right. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Especially,
at least in Japan, glass pens or dip pens are quite popular right now. Maybe I'm just not aware of those communities, but I don't get the impression that they are that's as popular in the kind of pen communities that we are aware of in the US and Europe. So with that in mind, it's interesting that so many people want these Drillog pens.
Yeah. And they're certainly very, very cool pens.
Yes.
We can all agree on that.
For sure.
All right. Do you want to end with just one question?
Do we have time for that? Okay, sure.
I think we have time. This is a short question. So,
sure.
This question is submitted by Jake, and they found us through the Pen Addict podcast, they think. It says, "Hi, CY and Jacob. I am from Australia, and I was just listening to your episode on the Moonman T1, and where you spoke about nibs you put in them. My question is, where do you get all of your different nibs? Is there any online store that you could recommend to people in Australia or other countries? Thanks, Jake.
Well, in my case, I'm mostly buying from like old pens from Mercari and Yahoo auctions. And if you want to buy from those marketplaces from overseas, you can use Zen Market or Buy.e, I think. Now, shipping to Australia is a bit tricky. I think EMS is still not available. You can ship via Yamato, but I'm not sure that Zen Market and Buy.e are offer Yamato as an option. So you might have to pay expensive like DHL or UPS fees.
Yeah, and then as for like where exactly I'm getting these nibs, I look for broken pens online. I look specifically for pens that are in bad condition, are broken. I can usually get them for cheap. And yeah, like just keep a lookout. I mean, in Japan there's a lot, but I know even on eBay there's plenty of pens that have like broken bodies, so they're trying to sell off whatever they can. But yeah, just different, I guess, secondhand sources.
And just one thing to add to that. So going back to how the episode started, I talked about these Pen BBS calligraphy nibs. Although they are clearly meant for Pen BBS pens, they are number 6 size. So I put that nib on a pen that takes Bock nibs, and that works fine.
Yep. All right. And I guess we'll leave it at that. I think we have a full episode. Yeah. And so thank you everybody so much. Again, we'd really appreciate if you would write in a question, post a comment on our website at tokyoinklings.com and leave a review and give us a rating on Apple Podcast. That would help us out so much. And again, thanks everybody. We are looking forward to coming back in 2 weeks for the next episode already. My name is CY. You can find me on my website at tokyostationpens.com, on Instagram at tokyostationpens, and on Twitter at tokyostationmnh.
And my name is Jacob, and I'm foodafan on Instagram and on Twitter, and have a blog at foodafan.com.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.